Alright guys, I'm getting set up here. One moment. Let's open Live Now links. Okay. Okay, so let's go to Alright, so let's do this. Dun, 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 dun. So here this goes. Alright, I think I'm ready. What's up, guys? How we doing? How we doing today? Hello. Let's go, man. I was able to get off work a little early today. Shoot. Feels pretty good. All right. So today, y'all, all right. I think the stream is ready. All right. I'm gonna start today's stream off today. I'm gonna be talking about the war on drugs, guys, and why it's a failure. When I got back from vacation a couple weeks ago, I started drinking and I started talking about it. I was doing like the intro to this, so I'm just redoing this, that first introduction video. So, um, this is a very passionate subject for me, and this goal, this my channel, y'all, is we have fun. We have fun playing games, watching me play games. We have fun with movie banter, reviewing movies, but I really want to kind of let's see if we can radicalize some people, wake some people up. People that don't follow politics, they think America's the greatest, all everything's hunky dory, or maybe everybody falls asleep on subjects. But maybe a goal of this channel is just to turn that light bulb on, guys. And I think the war on drugs was one of the very first like light bulbs for me they got turned on. It was like, oh gosh, like things aren't what they seem. Everything's a lie. America's like our government hates us, pretty much. So, um, what I like to do, guys, I have to guide us through this process, talking about the war on drugs and how it's a failure. I'm going to be reading. It's a stack of 35 or 36 of these war on drugs trading cards. 36 different cards, guys. They each have a story to tell on the back. And I know, like, in case some of y'all, well, come on, man. Where are your sources? You're just going to read the back of a trading card. Um, this doesn't look like education to me. But no, I'll back it up. Don't worry. I'll bust some links out, y'all, so I'm not talking out of my ass, okay? Um, but the first thing is the war on drugs, right? It's like we're gonna combat all those drug dealers. We're gonna stop shipments from coming in, and we're just gonna crack down on drugs, guys. But it's been over 50 years, and um, basically, drugs are more widely available than ever. They're better quality, and you can just get them anytime. Which is kind of like not that's not the absolute failure, dude. Like that the war on drugs, like if you're winning, drugs should be less out there. They should be super expensive, etc. But no, man. Yeah, that's one reason why the war on drugs is a scam. But let me give you a few reasons. Number one, it's a form of social control. The war on drugs, it destroys people's lives, guys. It keeps us distracted, and at most, it keeps communities disorganized. So think of like a revolutionary party like the Black Panthers, right? Um, the CIA, FBI, they've got people undercover, and then they're feeding drugs into organizations like these to keep them, distracted, and they can't organize correctly, and maybe plant drugs on them to get them on trumped up charges. You know what I mean? Number two, the United States has the highest prison population in the world, and this is one of those reasons, guys. Um, Prison sentences are handed out like candy for low-level, non-violent drug crimes. It also deliberately targets people of color. And um, one of the biggest, most red flag things about the war on drugs, guys, is the U.S. government. They trade drugs, guns, and money with right-wing goons to fund dirty wars. Okay, and it's usually to take out left-wing guerrillas defending their own country, um, to take out labor organizers, revolutionaries, etc. And it's also an excuse to invade countries. It's like, well, there's a tons of drugs over there. We got to get to the source. Hey, Colombia, do you mind if we set up some military bases over there? We got to get them over there before they come over here, like good old Georgie Bush, right? um, it's an excuse. Number five, it's an excuse. Oh, this is number four, I guess. It, War on drugs is an excuse to give the police more funds and militarize them. You know, guns, riot shields, grenades, just military equipment. Okay. And last but not least, guys, we should be using this money to build schools, infrastructure, food, housing. Keep the children fed. And people won't be so desperate. And we need to attack the problem. It's like a mental health issue, guys. Addiction's a very serious mental health issue. So we need to start putting money into that. So, um, real quick, before I start reading, I'm gonna read I'm gonna read five of these war on drugs trading cards today. Just five. But just to kick things off, guys, I would like to read an article. So this is from ACLU Arizona. A pretty short article, guys. Pretty short article. I just want to go over some quickie facts with you, just so we can freshen up. So, in 1968, Richard Nixon, under his admin, the U.S. Congress passed the Controlled Substance Act, which created five scheduled to regulate drugs. Classification is based on a drug's medicinal use, potential for abuse, and safety or dependency, with Schedule 1 having the most potential for abuse and Schedule 5 having the least potential for abuse. Marijuana is a Schedule 1, guys. Kind of ridiculous. And June 17, 1971, Nixon officially declared the war on drugs, telling Congress that drug addiction had become a national emergency and that drug abuse was the public enemy number one. The DEA is formed in 1973. And check out this quote from John Ehrlichman, one of Nixon's top advisors, said that we couldn't make it illegal to be either against the war or black. And then this article says, but by getting the public to associate drugs with both hippies and African Americans, the administration could then criminalize both heavily. So, anti-war activists, guys, let's and Nixon's minds, let's get them hooked on drugs, and then we can prosecute them. We're sending more money for the DEA, police. We can crack down on these lefties, and Nixon, I mean, majority of people in office are racist as hell, so got to find a way to lock people of color up, especially black people. And then next I want to read, Ronald Reagan added the fear of crack cocaine to the mix with the passage of the 1986 Anti-Drug Abuse Act. This piece of federal legislation granted $1.7 billion for the law enforcement to fight the war on drugs and established further mandatory minimum sentencing for drug offenders. Mandatory minimums created disproportions in drug sentencing that further racialized the criminal justice system. For example, possession of 5 grams of crack cocaine, which was disproportionately consumed by African Americans, triggered an automatic 5-year jail sentence, whereas possession of 500 grams of powder cocaine, which was largely consumed by a richer and wider population, merited the same sentence. Completely fucked up, guys. To continue, harsher drug sentences continued into the 1990s when Bill Clinton passed the 1994 crime bill, a $30 billion piece of legislation, one of the most racist bills ever written, guys. This was created by Joe Biden. Um, it funded 125,000 new state prison cells, mandated life sentences via 3-strike laws, added 60 new crimes worthy of the death penalty. Nationwide, the number of people locked up for non-violent drug-related crimes rose from 50,000 to 400,000 between 1980 and 1997. Over the last 40 years, the number of people convicted for drug-related crimes rose more than 500%. Jesus. So, I just wanted to read that article to start things off, guys, just to give you an intro to this video, this series I'm going to be doing, and just to make sure, again, that you're not like, well, you're just reading off the back of these trading cards. Gotta provide a link, gotta give you a quick history so you know we're on the same page, you know what I'm saying? So let's start with trading card number 1, guys. Declaration of War. Good old Georgie Bush on the front cover of this one. And it's got a good little read here. All right, this is number 1, titled "The Drug Wars: Declaration of War." This is a good one to start off with, guys. In his first nationally televised address from the Oval Office in September 1989, President Bush declared a $7.9 billion war on drugs. Brandishing a bag of crack cocaine, he called narcotics the gravest threat facing our nation. Whenever he talks. Every U.S. president since Richard Nixon has waged war on drugs. Yet today they are more widely available than ever before. Bush's own involvement with the drug wars began in 1971 when Nixon appointed him to the White House Cabinet Committee on International Narcotics Control. As vice president, Bush was Ronald Reagan's drug czar, heading the National Security Council's Drug Interdiction Task Force. Yet during Reagan's presidency, while federal anti-drug spending tripled, cocaine supplies soared tenfold. 1990 saw new highs in worldwide narcotics production. Oops, upside down. Bush's plan echoes failed policies of previous administrations. Over 72% of funds are allocated for law enforcement, new prisons, and interdiction, and less than 23% for prevention or treatment. The casualties of the war on drugs are mostly poor people of color, while the real criminals, bankers and businessmen who share the fabulous wealth created by the $300 billion a year worldwide drug trade, are rarely punished. Historically, drug wars have been used by imperial powers as smoke screens for foreign intervention. For the U.S., this has taken the form of spending military aid to corrupt allies who use the weapons not against drug traffickers with whom they are often in league, but to crush their internal political enemies. Meanwhile, U.S. agriculture and drug policies encourage production and export of deadly legal drugs. So that's number 1, guys. I have a link to read here for you guys. 2 links to talk about just to back up this card so you know I'm not full of it. Oops. So, guys, mandatory reading. Dark Alliance. I have Audible for some reason, and you can find this. It's pretty easy to find. I found it on Audible, and I guess I didn't read it. I listened to it. But guys, this is a mind-blowing read. It's mandatory reading, guys. This will get you into the war on drugs and blow your freaking mind. This was written by Gary Webb, a journalist who apparently suicided himself by shooting himself in the head twice. So this guy was blacklisted, his life was threatened, and he probably got offed by someone very powerful. Because basically, guys, like, um, how about there's two key players in this book, okay? Danilo Blandón and Norwin Meneses. They're Nicaraguan businessmen who are bitter because for like 50 years, guys, Nicaragua was backed by the U.S. and the Somoza's his last name, the Somozan dictatorship. He owned practically everything: the media, the land, resources, and he gave the big mega transnational corporations their cut. And he kept him and his family rich, and it kept the people down. Literacy rates were down, diseases were up, everyone's poor. So for decades, guys, the Somozan dictatorship was in charge of Nicaragua until the Sandinista revolution happened in the late 70s, I believe, and very brave revolutionaries, guys, and they kicked out Somoza, right? So you got Danilo Blandón and Norwin Meneses, wealthy businessmen, are bitter. They want to get back in there. They want like their money back. They want a dictator back in power in Nicaragua, not some lefties, because you can't carve up the country anymore. But it's like they basically um, were tied in with the CIA guys, and they were funding the Contra rebels, which is basically U.S. trained, funded, armed, and they would swap drugs, guns, money, and so you can fund this right wing. They're pretty much not just a like little military group, man. They're like a death squad. They'll terrorize um, the peasants, the countryside, the Sandinistas, the civilians. So they've got their own dirty war going on, guys. And this book, Dark Alliance, goes into that really, really deep, guys. And it also talks about Freeway Ricky Ross. Guys, this guy is a fucking piece of shit. Um, in Dark Alliance, the book, it talks about him because Danilo Blandón, Norma Meneses are giving him kilos upon kilos of like that pure cocaine which you need to make crack cocaine, guys. Because crack cocaine is like 100 times more addictive. Um, it's 100 times more addictive than powdered cocaine, like that pure snorting cocaine, right? When you smoke crack cocaine, it's incredibly addictive. You're never gonna reach that. They call it getting your bell rung. That first hit of crack cocaine, you're chasing that high the rest of your life. You'll never ever reach that same high again, and that's why um, I think Freeway, Rick Ross, and Danilo Blandón, or maybe it was Meneses. They were good at marketing. They knew, or at least Rick Ross knew, like, okay, crack cocaine, I can make it cheap. I cut the drug and mix it with like baking soda, do it in the microwave, whatever. But it's like he knew you can, like a gram of like powdered cocaine, guys, is like $80, and a bag of crack cocaine is like $5, $10. So he knew if I can like just get the supply going, the demand will be there. And for something so cheap and so addictive, guys, it flooded the streets of South Central Los Angeles. This piece of shit, guys, he thinks he's just some. In the book, it's just like he quotes himself like, "Oh, I'm a capitalist, whatever. I'm making money, I'm not doing nothing wrong. Whatever people do with their money or the drug, that's their problem." That's his mentality, guys. But this guy is like a tool for white elites, guys, to destroy people of color, the black community. This guy in this book, Dark Alliance, guys, it's very disturbing how he had so much money. He would set up like he had a bunch of properties he gobbled up so where he can cook the product, but he also had crack houses to where he would potential buyers he would hold like crack parties and give them a taste, and then like in the bedrooms there would be just women that are so gone, emaciated, guys, just there to take hits and offer sex. But it's just so sad the way it's described in the book. I mean, these women are just so far gone. Emaciated was the word they used. But it's like this guy just thinks, well, I'm a businessman. Yeah, it's like I'm lining my pockets like it's just America, whatever. But this guy is not. He's a fucking monster, dude. Piece of shit. And I know I've heard some people like, well, in America, I'll look the other way, because people are put into that position to deal drugs. And I don't know how I feel about that, guys. Like, you're destroying people's lives. It's like, I guess if you're just kind of a low level dealer, maybe? I don't know. Like, I get why people are forced into that position because America doesn't take care of their citizens. So, I just wanted to read those two links for y'all. Dark Alliance, guys, you gotta read it by Gary Webb. So, and it's just so sad, man. That whole. I wanted to mention, in South Central Los Angeles or any crime-ridden neighborhood, families see the danger. They don't want their kids growing up, so they just stop paying their mortgages. I can never say that word right. They just stop paying money on their house because they had to get out of there. So you have all these homes getting bought up by big business, big banks, like a dime on the dollar, like cheap. So that's like kind of gentrification right there, right? Homes get gobbled up by like BlackRock, corporations like that. So I just wanted to mention that. So, um, but just the amount of lives ruined, guys, and yeah. Okay, so that was card number one, crack cocaine, declaration of war. And you know what I've heard, guys, when George Bush went on national TV and was like putting this crack bag of crack cocaine on the camera. People, people of color are like they know like the government's full of shit, and then they know this guy's like full of it, right? And when they see that, it's like, oh, okay, maybe I should just start dealing crack. Then I can be a millionaire. So I've just been told like this was kind of like an advertisement. Hey, don't deal drugs. But it's like that was like people got into crack because of that one speech. So, okay. So, card number two, we're going to shift gears. These deck of cards kind of go all over as far as the years. This one's titled Opium and Empire Anglo Chinese Opium War. Get a big picture of that one. Number two. When Britain conquered India's Bengal province in the mid 1700s, the region's Patna opium came under the control of Britain's corporate proxy, the British East India Company. China refused to accept English manufactured goods in exchange for tea and silk, insisting on hard currency, so each year the East India Company bought the entire opium crop and smuggled it into China for Chinese silver, with which it legally purchased Chinese tea. The Emperor of China viewed opium as a poison introduced by foreign devils to destroy the nation, and in 1799 banned opium smoking and importation. The British ignored the ban because opium financed Britain's growing tea habit. 10% of Britain's revenue was derived from taxing tea. And the booming drug economy in Bengal provided a market for English textiles. Between 1773 and 1839, British exports of opium to China multiplied 30-fold. By the 1830s, after the British East India Company lost its monopoly, the smuggling trade was handled by firms like Jardine, Matheson and Company and Denton Company, who operated under British protection and bribed Canton officials to allow the drug traffic. In 1839, the Chinese again took a stand, blockading shipping routes and confiscating 3 million pounds of opium, 1 year's production. But British naval forces, backed up by armed merchant ships, destroyed all Chinese resistance by 1842. Damn. Following their defeat in the First Opium War, There was later a conflict in the 1860s. The Chinese were forced to cede certain port cities to the British and could no longer contain the flood of opium. By the early 1900s, there were 15 million Chinese addicts, and China, which had begun its own opium cultivation by 1880, was the world's leading producer. So, guys, I like talking about imperialism on this channel. What do empires do? They destabilize people, countries. They destabilize communities. And what's one way of doing that? Well, I just talked about crack cocaine, and now British man flooding opium to China. So that's the card number 2. Let's go to card number 3. We've got drug lord Jesse Helms. Number one killer drug is the title of this card. Let's talk about it. Tobacco is the number one drug of abuse in the United States. 53 million Americans are addicted to it. Tobacco is also the most deadly drug in common use. In 1989, while 2,000 people died of cocaine use, 390,000 died from tobacco. Even passive smoking, breathing in other people's smoke, causes 3,800 deaths a year. 80% of adults who smoke want to quit, but fully two-thirds of them have tried and failed. Tobacco use costs society $50 billion a year in healthcare, insurance, and lost productivity. As with alcohol, tobacco companies target low-income people. Some 35% of tobacco billboard advertising is placed in ghetto neighborhoods. Government publicity on the hazards of smoking has resulted in 5,000 Americans quitting every day. Teens take up smoking at the rate of 3,000 a day, leaving a shortfall which has caused U.S. tobacco companies to aggressively expand their markets worldwide. It is here that we see the power of the tobacco lobby, led in the U.S. Senate by men from tobacco-producing states like North Carolina. Republican Senator Jesse Helms, excuse me, to whom Philip Morris, makers of the Marlboro cigarettes and Miller beer, as well as Kraft Foods, donated $200,000 for his successful 1990 re-election campaign. In 1989, tobacco companies saw a 20% growth in exports, largely as a result of strong-arm tactics by the U.S. government to force countries like Japan, South Korea, and Taiwan to open their markets to American tobacco or face trade sanctions. In 1990, Thailand, which had discouraged smoking for 20 years and forbidden tobacco ads, succumbed to U.S. pressure and now allows U.S. tobacco companies to sell and advertise their products. Number one killer drug, tobacco. So, man, guys, I vape and I've had trouble quitting. I've had a month in there the past 5 years where I quit, but dude, sometimes I cough, guys, or like you choke on your spit or you swallow water down the wrong pipe, and dude, I'm telling you, I'm like, I'm like, whoa, that's not right. That's not right. I mean, I'm a little out of shape. I've been going to the gym. Maybe it's just I'm out of shape, but I gotta quit, guys. Gotta quit. And I'm just sucking on those stupid views that are made by J.M. Reynolds. Really jitty, man. Cadaver on TikTok chat says prison slave labor is incentivized by capitalism. Why can't I say that? Correct, dude. You are correct. That was Cadaver in the TikTok chat. Guys, go to twitch.tv/game.film. That's where I'm keeping an eye on the. That's where I'm keeping track of the chat. Okay, guys. So, card number 4, St. Valentine's Day Massacre. Some nice artwork on there, guys. And the title of card number 4, America's Drug of Choice. Let's begin. Let me drink some water. Ooh, yeah, itchy. All right. America's Drug of Choice. On January 19th, 1920, the 18th Amendment became law, making alcohol illegal. Not only was prohibition unenforceable, but the enormous profits generated by bootlegging created a new criminal class, whose legacy flourished long after the law was repealed on December 5th, 1933. Though Chicago gangster Al Capone, whose intermissing, I can't pronounce that word. Okay, basically, the St. Valentine's Day Massacre of 1929 symbolized the mob violence of the Prohibition era. Um, he was in jail by then, and bootleggers like Lucky Luciano, Meyer Lansky, Mo Dalitz, and Frank Costello used their ill-gotten millions to create legal liquor empires and corner the gambling business and the heroin trade. Joseph Kennedy used his bootlegging fortune to create a political dynasty. Huh, how about that? The violence during Prohibition taught mob leaders the value of bribes over bullets and of cooperation between families or cartels. Eventually, both labor unions, especially the Teamsters, and Hollywood became victims of this powerful new national crime syndicate. Not only is alcohol use legal, it is often glamorized. Beer makers spend billions sponsoring major sporting events and linking beer drinking athletics in their TV ads. A lot of beer commercials during football season, man. Producers of high octane, low cost beers and wines like King Cobra and Night Train Express target ghetto communities with special promotions. But the figures on alcohol abuse aren't pretty. Out of 102 million users in the US, 18 million abuse or are addicted to alcohol, costing the US $120 billion a year in lost work, accidents, treatment costs, and deaths. Each year, 75,000 babies are born with permanent brain damage, which can occur with even moderate alcohol use during pregnancy. Alcohol is a causative factor in one-third of all accidental deaths. So that was number 4, guys. America's drug of choice. So, guys, this is the problem. When you prohibition, guys, so you ban alcohol, crime went insane, and then people are still drinking. Might be a little more difficult, but was it though? I didn't live in the 30s, but it's guys when um all these drugs are illegal. Look at the crime. Look at the war on drugs. Look at the police funding, militarizing the police. If we legalized all drugs, I have a question for y'all though. If we legalized all drugs, crime will go down, right? But it's like with alcohol, with it being legal, with cigarettes being legal, look how many health problems there are. So my question is like, even if we legalize all drugs, it's like, are people gonna be in harm's way? Maybe people will just get bored. They might use a drug once or twice. They realize the dangers, etc. So, but decriminalization is key, okay? Decriminalization is key. We got to get people out of the prison system, but I'm just worried, guys, like about legalizing drugs. So, something to think about because look how many lives are destroyed by smoking and alcohol. Those are legal. People lose their lives. All those statistics I just read, guys, of people's lives get ruined by smoking and alcohol. So I'm just saying, I know legalizing drugs is a thing, but it's like think of all the new abuses of cocaine, heroin, etc. that would happen. People will be harmed. So that's a topic for a different day. All right, I'm gonna read. Patrick's in the chat says we decriminalize hard drugs and it just make things worse. Interesting. Um, I think the United States just has the biggest prison population in the world, man, and it's deliberately targeting poor people and people of color. So I think violent offenders should definitely be locked up, but non-violent offenders, man, just caught with a little bag or something, that's just not cool. They shouldn't be locked up for years. That's my take. Crime went up, homelessness went up. Interesting, man. Patrick lives is in the Twitch chat, guys. He lives in Canada. All right. Number 5, guys. This is a big-eared Thoo. That's his nickname, apparently. Card number 5 is titled The Green Gang. So let's talk about card number 5. While rival warlords vied for power in the chaos following the 1911 fall of China's Manchu dynasty, the Nationalist Party of Kuomintang (KMT) joined forces with the communist-led labor movement after KMT leader Sun Yat-sen's death. In 1925, Chiang Kai-shek took over the party, and by 1927, the KMT army, bankrolled by Chiang's close relatives, financiers H. Kung and T.V. Soong, controlled most of northern China and was preparing to march into Shanghai. Communist labor leaders called a general strike to welcome KMT liberation from Shanghai's warlords. Not wanting to share power with the communists, Chiang turned to his old friend Tu Huisheng, the head of a Shanghai secret society or triad called the Green Gang, controllers of the local heroin trade. Big-eared Tu, as he's called, recruited and armed thousands of gangsters who brutally suppressed the strike and murdered most of its leaders. The, the subsequent infiltration of Tu's thugs into the labor movement, combined with financial and public relations aid from Soong's American connections, the Roosevelts and Henry Luce, publisher of Time and Life magazines, helped Chiang stay in power until World War II, when the Japanese invaded and took over the drug traffic. After the war, the KMT and the Green Gang regained control, but in 1949, Mao Zedong's communists drove them out of China. The Green Gang tried to move into Hong Kong but failed. The KMT relocated to Taiwan but sent a large KMT army contingent to Burma, where, with CIA assistance, they expanded the local poppy growing industry. Chiang profited from Burma's heroin trade and enjoyed U.S. government support until his death in 1975. So, we're going to dive deeper into this topic, which is in my introduction or today's video. I mentioned one of the main reasons the United States and other empires, they trade guns, drugs, money with right wing freaking goons, the worst freaking people, if the ends justify the means. So, guys, I'm not a communist and I don't read theory, but communists cut into corporate profits. There's no classes, okay? And that is a huge threat to capitalists, rich people, okay? And we massacre those people. And one way we do it, guys, is using drugs to fund right wing people to break up a dock worker strike. And we're going to talk about that, how the United States in the 50s was in ties with the mob. They were letting them trade heroin, just turned a blind eye, and actively participating it with them so they can crack down on labor organizers, um, dock workers that were striking. They were busting heads, cracking heads open, mobsters, and they were funded because of the drug trade. Because you can't have leftists, guys. You can't have labor organizers, communists, because they cut into corporate profits. And yeah, so that was today's introduction to the war on drugs, guys. I read 5 of these trading cards today, and there's 36 in here. So stay tuned. I'm going to be reading 5 more a different day. Just a little preview of what I'm going to be talking about. Let's pick 5 out of the deck right off the top. We're going to be talking about Lucky Luciano, like the artwork here. Marseille Dock Strikes. This is what I wanted to mention, guys. Mobsters in bed with the FBI, CIA. My Lovable Fascist, probably about Japan there, and the U.S. cozying up. Chairman of the board. And the Great Heroin Coup. So there you go. Bam, 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 bam. All right, so that was a good little 30 minutes or so, guys. Wait, let me put those up. All right, so Patrick's, if you're still around in the chat, I'm gonna talk movies, okay? Ooh, let me get ready to talk some movies. Do 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 do. Da, 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 da. All right, so here we go. Here we go. All right, so let's see where I was. Do 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 do. Alright, I think I'm ready to talk movies. Let me just update my stream information, guys. Alright, so what I'm going to do, guys, I'm going to end the stream and boot it up.